When you have to show up post-debate and spin for yourself, you know things probably didn't go quite to plan. President Trump, did you win the debate tonight?
Well, the polls say 92% to 70. I think we did great.
Did you feel you won?
I felt I won by a lot.
Did she get you rattled?
No, not at all.
You seemed a bit rattled. He claims he wasn't, yet it was clear the vice president's plan was to do just that from the moment she boldly strode right over to him last night.
Kamala Harris, let's have a good debate.
Nice to see you. Have fun.
Thank you.
Let's have a good debate, she said, eyeing the man she'd never before stood face to face with until now, and he got off to a good start.
Everything that she believed 3 years ago and 4 years ago is out the window. She's going to my philosophy now. In fact, I was going to send her a MAGA hat.
She seemed nervous at first, but got into her stride during a fierce exchange on the issue that could decide November's election.
But her vice presidential pick says abortion in the 9th month is absolutely fine. He also says execution after birth. It's execution, no longer abortion, because the baby is born, is okay. And that's not okay with me.
The moderator intervened.
There is no state in this country where it is legal to kill a baby after it's born.
Then came Harris's direct, powerful appeal to the women of America.
The government, and Donald Trump certainly, should not be telling a woman what to do with her body. A 12 or 13-year-old survivor of incest being forced to carry a pregnancy to term? They don't want that.
Once on comfortable turf, Harris picked up the pace.
You will see during the course of his rallies, he talks about fictional characters like Hannibal Lecter. He will talk about windmills cause cancer. And what you will also notice is that people start leaving his rallies early out of exhaustion and boredom. And I will tell you, the one thing you will not hear him talk about is you.
Needling Trump to get a rise was the strategy, and it clearly worked.
Let me respond as to the rallies. She said people start leaving. People don't go to her rallies. There's no reason to go. So she can't talk about that. People don't leave my rallies. We have the biggest rallies, the most incredible rallies in the history of politics.
But surely his advisors were wincing backstage when Trump went totally off-piste with wild allegations about Haitian migrants in Ohio.
In Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there.
It brought forth that famous Harris laugh and another fact check.
There have been no credible reports of specific claims of pets being harmed, injured.
There was no audience and no mics, which his advisors thought would help Trump, and he did occasionally land the odd jab.
Now, wait a minute, I'm talking now, if you don't mind, please. Does that sound familiar?
Don't lie, she said off mic. Harris was everything Biden was not in his debate. Forensic, fast, and fleet of foot.
That these dictators and autocrats are rooting for you to be president again because they're so clear they can manipulate you with flattery and favors.
In the end, it took the full 90 minutes for Trump to finally land what we were told would be his main attack line.
So she just started by saying she's going to do this, she's going to do that, she's going to do all these wonderful things. Why hasn't she done it? She's been there for 3.5 years. They've had 3.5 years to fix the border. They've had 3.5 years to create jobs and all the things we talked about. Why hasn't she done it?
All valid points that voters are concerned about, but they came too late, leaving the Democrats this debate night to claim a victory.
This was a very different debate to the last one, right?
Well, there's no objective way to suggest otherwise, absolutely unequivocally.
As we spoke, news rippled through the spin room that Taylor Swift had just endorsed Kamala Harris in a post on Instagram.
Governor, just in a word, Taylor Swift.
Yeah, I think Donald Trump at his peril dismisses it and disparages it. He'll pay an even bigger price than
apparently
anybody
he's over
tonight.
there.
Yeah,
apparently he's
well,
over there.
he better be in here because he has a lot to spend tonight.
And there he was, doing exactly that on Fox News.
And I just felt we had a great night.
To the surprise of everyone, Donald Trump actually turned up in the spin room this evening. He's giving an interview to Fox News now, claiming that he won the debate tonight, that Kamala Harris didn't answer any questions and certainly didn't get under his skin.
It wasn't as if Trump didn't have an army of surrogates out there spinning for him already.
You think Donald Trump won this debate?
Yes, because he answered the questions that matter to the lives of the American people.
There were many questions he didn't answer.
No, that's not true.
What policies did Donald Trump talk about?
Donald Trump talked about the policies that he implemented for 4 years that created the
But the future policies. He didn't talk about future policies.
You don't have to worry about what Donald Trump is going to do. You know what he's going to do.
So what do you say to voters who think they can't trust Kamala Harris because of her flip-flopping on certain policies?
And
she has moved away from some of her positions. What do you say to voters who say she can't be trusted?
Well, first of all, I mean, I think any good leader is willing to adjust their opinions based upon new evidence.
There was none of last night's rancor on display this morning during a memorial service to commemorate the 9/11 attacks in New York. More FaceTime for Harris and Trump, and another handshake, awkwardly bypassing Joe Biden, his rival just 6 weeks ago. Now he's a thing of the past, and it's her vying with Trump for the chance to shape America's future.
Well, there is no doubt that Kamala Harris had a great night last night. If there was a list of attacks that her advisors wanted her to hit, well, she ticked every single box and then some. But as her campaign pointed out in their numerous blasts to Democrats after the debate, one night does not a presidency make. There are still 54 days between now and November's election, and it will likely take days or even weeks for the full effect, the full impact of that debate to really filter through into the polls proper. There was one snap poll from CNN overnight of registered voters that found 63% of them thought Harris gave the better performance on stage, as opposed to 37% for Donald Trump. Prior to the debate, those same voters were split 50-50 as to which candidate would perform more strongly. That doesn't, of course, mean that they will then go ahead and vote for Kamala Harris. She still has a lot of work to do, particularly with those independent voters who care so much about the economy, where she is weak and where she wasn't particularly pushed very hard last night. But for sure, coming out of the debate, the Democrats feel that all the momentum is with them, but they know, as we all do, that you can never count Donald Trump out.
Siobhan Kennedy. Well, earlier I spoke to Senator Chris Coons, a close ally of President Biden, who was co-chair of his re-election campaign and is now co-chair of the Harris campaign. And I began by asking him how much of a difference he thinks last night's debate would have actually made.
Well, a great debate performance does not win an election, but it helped clarify and sharpen the differences between Vice President Harris and former President Trump.
Now, I suppose, you know, history tells us that debates are important. It was very important for President Biden. So how important do you think this performance was? I mean, how nervous were you at the beginning?
This was a particularly important performance. Former President Trump came across as angry, grievance-filled, backwards-looking, frankly, unhinged. And Vice President Harris came across as positive, forward-looking, upbeat. Kamala Harris is clearly focused on addressing the issues that average Americans say they're facing day in and day out. And Donald Trump seems to be focused on his own issues, relitigating the 2020 election, his sense of anger and grievance at how he frankly was fired by 70 million Americans in 2020.
Were you surprised at how easy it seemed to be for the vice president to distract President Trump? I mean, you know, she laid trap after trap, and he just sort of fell into them, it seemed.
I wasn't surprised, because Donald Trump has shown over and over, when he was president and as a candidate, at home and abroad, that he is easily distracted and manipulated. One of the most important points that Kamala Harris made was that Vladimir Putin is not his friend and will eat him for lunch. That as someone who is desperate to be liked and to be important and to be in the center of the news, Donald Trump can be led astray, and he frankly would be putty in the hands of a dictator like Vladimir Putin.
Is there a danger, though, that Americans will look at it and say, well, yes, she's a better debater, but when I look at my bank account, when I look at my standard of living, am I better off now than I was before? No, I'm not. I'm going to go for Trump. I mean, how do you counter that?
So a majority of Americans do think the country is headed in the wrong direction. That's why it was important for Kamala Harris to make it clear that she's the candidate of change, that she's got a different focus, a different set of priorities than former President Trump. next year, the massive tax bill that Donald Trump got passed on a Republican straight-line party vote back in 2017 expires. And we're going to have a fight here in Congress and with our president over how to spend trillions of dollars. Donald Trump wants to spend that money to benefit billionaires and the most profitable companies. And Kamala Harris made it clear that she wants to spend that money on tax cuts for the middle class that'll help with the costs of housing, prescription drugs, the cost of higher education, of daycare and childcare, of having a child and a bigger family. So they laid out very different visions going forward for what's going to be one of the most important fights coming up next year.
How difficult is it for Vice President Harris to lay out her economic vision without implicitly criticizing President Biden?
Well, she has drawn some contrasts. For example, in the last few weeks, she's made it clear that while she does think we should raise the capital gains rate, she's proposing not raising it anywhere near the amount that, say, Bernie Sanders would like or that President Biden has proposed. She's drawn some distinctions in what her priorities are. That reflects the fact that she's got years of experience as vice president and as a senator, and that we're now facing a different economic situation than the one in which President Biden grew up as a senator and as vice president and as president.
Do you think they should do another debate? I mean, might she be tempted to say, well,
absolutely,
the consensus
I would look forward
one.
to it. I would buy a ticket to that next debate.
Right. I mean, you don't think it's a risk, you know, if you're ahead, quit?
I don't think there's a risk that Kamala Harris, who is a very capable and seasoned prosecutor, public speaker, senator, and vice president, that she would somehow fail at a second debate.
I mean, ultimately, what do you think this election is going to come down to in those swing states where it's going to be won?
At the end of the day, it's going to come down to people's sense of trust. Which of these two candidates has their interests at heart? Which of these two candidates is going to make our country a better place, safer abroad and stronger at home? And I think when it comes down to that question, Kamala Harris will win.
Senator Coons, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you. Great to be on with you.
Well, Mark Lotter joins me now from Washington, D.C. He's a former advisor to President Trump, who led his communications strategy when he ran in 2020. Good evening. Let me begin with the same question. What difference do you think the debate has made?
I don't think it makes much of a difference. I think the folks who came in supporting Kamala Harris probably left supporting Kamala Harris. The people who came in supporting President Trump left supporting President Trump. And so far, what I've seen, both through a Reuters panel and in the New York Times, some great reporting that undecided voters left unconvinced because Kamala Harris can't and won't answer the basic question of how would she lower prices? How would she secure the border when she was the person, along with Joe Biden, who broke both of those things?
But would you agree the momentum still seems to be with her? I mean, she hasn't put a foot wrong yet. And, you know, there were no knockouts last night, however hard President Trump tried.
Well, I don't think she actually has. She's never gotten the lead. So I think her momentum, her honeymoon has come to an end. And even when you look at the polling averages, because I think all polls have some built-in biases one way or the other. So if you look at the polling averages, Kamala Harris right now is about 5 to 7 points behind where Joe Biden was at this point in 2020. She's anywhere from 3 to 5 points behind where he was in the battleground states. And in some cases, she's even doing worse than Hillary Clinton was doing in 2016. That 2020 election came down to 43,000 votes in 3 states. And if you're performing 3 to 5 points worse, that's not a good place to be if you're a Democrat.
Yeah, so who are those people that you are now trying to reach? Who was Donald Trump trying to speak to last night?
Well, I think obviously he was trying to speak to that small swath of people, maybe 3-5% who are undecided still. And I think in one case, what we've seen and some of the comments that we've seen publicly after the debate was maybe they were open to taking a look at Kamala Harris because she was a new candidate. No one really knew much about her. But since she can't spell out what she's going to do to actually improve their lives, well, they know Donald Trump is going to do it. He did it once before, and he'll do it again.
So do you think the craziest stuff doesn't matter? You know, the pet-eating immigrants and all that, you know, that people just discount all of that because what they care about is cost of living?
Well, I mean, I think we've seen 10 years now where the media has run wild with all kinds of things about Donald Trump.
I mean, he came out with it.
When they look at it, I do think that they will judge this on basically the economy. I think they'll judge this on the immigration crisis that's in our country. And I think they correctly blame Joe Biden and Kamala Harris for creating all of these problems and how she's not the change agent to fix what she broke.
But how do you see those moments? You know, I mean, like, you know, the other side, you know, what you would portray as sort of the elite will look at that sort of thing about dog and cat eating immigrants in Springfield and laugh and go, there he goes again, he's crazy, he looks stupid. When he says that, what do you think when he says that? Do you just think it's kind of amusing or what?
Well, there are reports that have been documented. There's been public testimony about people who have talked about migrants and geese and ducks in those parks. And there's no question that the tiny town of Springfield, which has about 60,000 people, now has another 15 to 20,000 illegal Haitian immigrants. So they are struggling. Many of them are struggling with people squatting on their yards. They're having problems with auto accidents because the folks there now can drive, but they can't read. And there have been reports.
Yeah, but people aren't eating cats, is the point, are they? So, I mean,
but I think it brings a bigger picture.
Yeah, and similarly, you know, on the abortion question, you know, when he says things that aren't true, like, you know, doctors are killing babies, do you, again, what's your reaction to that?
There are 15 states. Hang on a second. There are 15 states where abortion is legal up until the moment of birth, and Kamala Harris voted against the Baby Care Act, which says that a baby that survives a botched abortion must be given life-giving care. Tim Walz actually signed a bill in Minnesota that says doctors do not have to provide life-saving care.
So you think that's a good attack line still?
In Minnesota under that law, and then he stopped the hospital reporting of it because he didn't want to see the numbers anymore.
Mark Lawson, thank you very much for joining us.